Hey, I'm Sean Russell. This video specifically about construction is going to be dealing with self-building in Texas. And again, this is for people who are financing. If you're paying cash, it doesn't matter. Texas is a little tricky, a little different than other states. I happen to work for a bank that is family owned. We do allow a type of self-build in other states. It's not a problem at all, or a lot easier. Texas has some challenges. Without boring you with those details, it is important that you know there is a way to do it. You can act as a GC on your own project. There's a few services I can connect you with where that consultant is not just a consultant, and you are paying them a fee, but I can assure you that the savings for the material cost because of them sharing their list of suppliers and labor force is going to more than make up for what you pay them. So we can talk about that in more detail, but the important thing is this. Anytime you're going to be financing, you need to find out what the rules are with the bank. Again, our bank has very specific rules on how these loans look. So here's a couple of things. I would get you pre-qualified. It's important that you get pre-qualified based on what the future value. You kind of start from the end project. So when this house that you want to build is done, what does the price look like? What does the monthly payment look like? Taxes, insurance, all that stuff. So start from the end game. That's on all construction deals. And then you work your way backwards from there into the construction part itself. Most banks will not allow you to act as your own general contractor. You may have a buddy who's a general contractor. That's not because of a license requirement in Texas. It's just simply because of homestead laws. And again, there's other issues with drawn material and getting, costs up front, managing the money that custom builders have to finance, where they might be carrying up to $250,000 or $500,000 at any given time, just in material costs on credit because they're established. So there's problems with you trying to truly build on your own. So I have a couple companies I've worked with for the last 10 plus years now. They will act as a consultant. Again, they share their list with you. They walk you through the process. Everything that you think you need to ask or that you think you know or think you need to know, you will know by the end of it. I can just tell you that the companies I work for, there's actually 3 of them across the state of Texas specifically. And with all the problems with material cost overruns and all the fears that you might have, these 3 companies, I never had one single problem with budgets. And I close on a given basis, just to give you some scale, anywhere between $30 and $50 million a year in custom home financing, somewhere in the neighborhood of $600,000 to $700,000 average project each. So what you're going to do is you're going to get pre-qualified for what you think you are going to need to build, okay? I may give you a base price. Right now, a lot of them are using $130 a square foot as a base price. Okay, so if you at least know where you're looking at land, how much acreage you're looking to buy, then I can help to hone you in on maybe what you need to get pre-qualified for. On construction loans, it's important, especially when you're self-building, but even on any construction loan, you are as the customer are in charge of approving those draws. So what that means is if you're sitting down with a builder and they're saying, here's what I think you need to budget based on what your taste is, just know that with our bank and with most banks I've ever seen, you have control of the budget. So you are not going to pay for anything extra, but especially when you're self-building, for all the surprises along the way and the things you might not think of in budgeting, you're going to have a contingency budget line item built in there. Again, for self-build projects, we're going to treat it where you're going to have a 10% contingency budget. So let's say you think you can build the house for $500,000. You've got $100,000 in land, let's say, for valuation. On that $500,000 build, we're going to have you add in a $50,000 contingency budget. These companies are going to walk you through that budgeting process as you go. But again, that 10% contingency, if there is a material cost adjustment, let's say lumber goes up because of tariffs or whatever reason it might happen, you have money that you can use to keep that job moving quickly. I'll say this about 1,000 times through my construction videos. Time is always the enemy. Doesn't matter how you try to do it, how careful you try to be. I have people sometimes holding out with builders over what amounts to a couple $100 worth of material, and they forget that they're probably, or labor, and they forget that every week they sit in their loan, they're paying sometimes $1,000 in interest, So the construction financing, it's important to understand that relationship and always remember that time is your enemy. Okay, so self-building. I would get you pre-qualified for what you think you need. Let's say in that scenario, you need a $600,000 house. Now, our bank would allow you to have as little as 5% equity in the project. So if you already own your land or it's family land that you inherited, we can use that equity in lieu of a traditional down payment, as long as we're not financing more than 95% of either the cost or the value of the property, the lesser of the two, okay? Then again, you can have as little as 5% equity in the whole project. If you've got the equity in the land, we can even roll in closing costs. But again, what happens a lot is people go out and find a piece of land, they buy the piece of land, then they call me and they find out the financing is trickier than they thought. Or they stop the whole project because they can't find financing for self-builds. Okay, so the way the loan looks as you're building this project, as you're GCing your own project, the clients I'd refer you to that can help as a consultant would simply help you, especially with the big ticket items, through what's called the dry-in phase. So laying the foundation, getting the house framed, roof up, dried in, the house is basically sealed up. Those big ticket items happen usually in the first 90 days or less. As they walk you through, they're a little more hands-on typically during that phase. Then you're just making the calls and arranging a continual stream of people for the build of the house. You're paying interest only during this phase on the aggregate balance of what you have used in your draws. So I want you to imagine that $500,000 budget. Let's say by the end of the first month, or really the end of the second month, more realistically, you have used the first $100,000. You know, you've drawn for the foundation and framing, for instance, just for rough number's sake. Every $100,000 that you draw equates to about $700 in interest, okay? So again, imagine you log into our software, it's called Built. You're gonna see a spreadsheet type layout of your entire budget. When you see on there you've got an aggregate balance of $100,000 now that you've approved, then again, you're gonna see an interest payment for that month for about $700. So again, interest only for up to 12 months to build your house, okay? Every $100,000 you use adds about $700 in interest. So if you imagine on most of my builds, they're about 6 to 8 month builds, okay? Even on the self-build stuff. So let's say month after month, you're adding approximately $100,000 balance. So you would see your payments increase as like $700 the first month, then $1,400 the next month. And that would continue through the build process until you're done with construction. Once you're done with construction, whatever you don't use, including that contingency money, just becomes more equity that you have in the project. You never pay interest on what you don't use. And I say that because I have people drilling down on the budget, trying to get to that dream number, again, wasting time. And so some of them are 6 months into this budgeting process, and by the time they finish getting their trim and cabinets all bid out because they wanted every mirror bid out. Well, guess what? Lumber prices have adjusted, concrete adjusts. So again, time is your enemy, right? So as you're going through, just know that you need to get a working budget together. I trust the companies I'll refer you to. I trust them after 10 years of working with them and not having any budgets blown. I feel very confident. Again, if you did have cost overruns because of some things you didn't get to bid out or you decided to change your mind or upgrade, you have 10% built into a budget. So again, $500,000, you got $50,000 sitting aside that you could use for contingency or upgrades or just surprises that might come along the way. When you're done with construction, the loan in one way or another is going to land into a conventional loan. Typically, if you're under, in Texas at least, if the loan amount for the final loan is under $806,000, then you can be a conventional loan, okay? If you're going above that, it'll be jumbo loans, but most of my self-builds have been, the loan amounts have been under $800,000. So as you're going through and you're considering this process, again, before you buy land, before you get down to sit and start spending hours and hours on plans and soil tests or clearing dirt or any of that stuff, I can't tell you how heartbreaking it is when someone's talking about their dream house and I have to be the dream crusher and tell them that this won't work the way that you're putting it together, or the ratio. You might think, well, hey, I was pre-approved for a $500,000 house or a $600,000 house. Qualifying on a construction loan is very different, okay? I'll talk about that in another section here. I'll be talking about one-time and two-time closes. If you look below, again, all you got to do is subscribe, leave some comments. If you have questions, I'll have my contact information for work through there that you can reach me. But again, thanks for listening, and please, again, pass this along to anybody you may know that is interested in self-build or acting as their own general contractor. I hope this helps.